What's going on, guys? Mr. Wheels here with another episode of Sports Talk and part 4 of the NHL Pre-season Preview, looking at the Central Division this time. And I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Rather than go in alphabetical order, I'm going to go with the teams that I think have the best chance of making the playoffs and competing for the Stanley Cup. So, without further ado, the first team would be, in my opinion, we should talk about is the St. Louis Blues. They have 3 solid goaltenders that could share the workload if they need to. That's Brian Elliott, who played all of the playoffs last season, Yaroslav Halak, who I expect to have a bounce-back season, and their goaltending prospect, Jake Allen. Now, the Blues are one of the few teams that have only a couple departures. Most notably, David Perron went to Edmonton, and the Blues got Magnus Pierre back in return, and Andy McDonald retired due to post-concussion syndrome. Now, the new additions to the team are most notably Magnus Pierre and Maxim Lapierre. I don't really expect them to. They'll chip in a little bit on the offensive side. Lapierre could be considered a more defensive forward, but I don't think it'll change the complexion of this team too much. The keys to this team winning, though, is they're probably the most well-off team in the NHL because they have a solid defense, and you can look for this year for their young prospects to chip in. That's, again, Magnus Pierre Svensson, Jaden Schwartz, and Vladimir Tarasenko. I expect those guys to have big years and really help out offensively. And the strength of the team is they have no shortage of offense. They proved that last year, and they've got one of the best defenses in the league. The only weakness I see on this team is whether they can actually get to the next level. They've been in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, and both years they've ran into the LA Kings. And we'll see with, some minor new additions and not really losing anybody that significant, whether they can actually contend for a cup. I think they will be a cup contender, no doubt. Now, moving on to the defending Stanley Cup champions, that's the Chicago Blackhawks. They're very solid in goal. They've got last season's Conn Smythe Trophy winner in Corey Crawford. His stats from last season, he had a 1.94 goals against average and a .926 save percentage. He's going to have to repeat those numbers, but this time he's going to have to do it for a full season, so that'll be the test. But, if he struggles, the good news is that they have Nikolai Habibulin backing Crawford up, so that gives them some stability there. And the only question is, can those guys be consistent and help the team win? Like a lot of teams, that's the same question, but goaltending will basically win you championships. And moving on to the departures on this team, they've lost a few guys that are notable. Victor Stahlberg, Michael Frolik, and David Bolin. Now, this is going to affect Chicago's depth scoring. And, I would like that. I'm waiting to see who will step up in the absence of these 3 guys. Now, As for new additions to the team, they picked up Theo Peckham and Mike Koska in the offseason. That'll just add more stability to an already great defense, as they proved in last season's Stanley Cup run. The keys to the Blackhawks winning is going to be the same thing that helped them win the Cup, and that's Taves, Kane, and Sharp are going to have to carry the team offensively. The main strength of the team, though, is their core group of players are still together. They still got Brandon Saad, Brian Bickle, a lot of the guys that were really key in helping them win the Cup last season are still there, and they should still have plenty of offense. But I see the weaknesses possible weaknesses I see on this team is there's some new prospects coming up in the bottom part of their lineup, and my question is, how will they fit into this team that is looking to repeat? And obviously the other thing that could turn out to be a weakness is the curse of winning the Stanley Cup and trying to repeat. It hasn't been done since Detroit did it in 1998, and since then we've been talking about the Stanley Cup hangover, so we'll see how that affects them. But all that aside, I think that the Blackhawks could easily repeat as Stanley Cup champions, and they will definitely make the postseason. Now, moving on to the Nashville Predators, Pekka Rinne, in my opinion, is one of the better goaltenders in the league, and it's not a question of his play. He's proven that he's a solid goalie and he can play. Nashville knocked Detroit out of the playoffs a couple seasons ago, and it was in large part to the play of Pekka Rinne, so no worries there. It's more of a question of who will back him up. Steve Mason, that'll probably be who it is, but they've also got this guy, Carter Hutton, who's just a prospect. So we'll see how that plays out. And we'll see how Chris Mason fares backing up Pekka Rinne and how much of a workload he can take on in support of Pekka Rinne. Now, the Predators haven't really lost anybody. Most notably, Martin Erat left for Washington, and that will affect their scoring ability. They're going to struggle offensively already, and losing Martin Erat is not going to help them. Their new additions, they drafted Seth Jones, a defenseman from the Portland Winterhawks. I don't know whether he'll make the team this year. He might need a season in the AHL. They also added Matt Hendricks and Victor Stolberg. So Victor Stolberg will have to step up in the absence of Martin Erat and might give them even more scoring. We'll have to see. But the keys to Nashville winning and competing for a playoff spot that I see are Pekka Rinne is obviously going to have to stand on his head. They're going to have to play tight defensively. They have a pretty solid defense with guys like Shea Weber and Kevin Klein and just to name a couple guys. But they're going to have to win close games, and Pekka Rinne is going to have to steal some games for them. The strength of the team is their goaltending and their defense. I see the weaknesses as possibly not enough scoring and forward depth. They're going to have a lot of prospects coming up this year, and I see so it's not only forward depth, but it's experienced forwards in their bottom six, and I see that could possibly negatively affect the team. However, they could surprise and make it into the playoffs, and then from there anything can happen. Moving on to the Dallas Stars. They have a decent starting goalie in Kari Lehtinen. although I don't really think he's been, to me, he's not really a playoff goalie. He hasn't had much playoff experience. And his numbers from last season, he had a 2.66 goals against average and a .916 save percentage. His GAA has to be lower if the Stars are going to be successful. However, if Curry Lettinen doesn't get the job done, they also have Dan Ellis backing him up, and that could be a good insurance policy for the Stars, because they're not going to have a whole lot of offense on this team. They also lost their goaltending prospect, Richard Bachman. He went to Calgary, but the Stars went out and signed Tyler Seguin, Sergei Gonchar, Eric Cole, Sean Horkoff, and Rich Peverley. So they will have experience on this team, and the keys to them winning are going to be big numbers from Jamie Benn, and Tyler Seguin's going to have to put all the crap that happened in Boston behind him. They're going to have to get balanced scoring throughout the lineup, because they're not really going to have an elite top line. But the strength on the team is the fact that a lot of their players that they picked up in the offseason have Stanley Cup playoff experience, and a lot of them have won cups. The weaknesses, however, is with any veteran team, they're just an aging team, and again, a question mark for me is their goaltending, and can they stay healthy? And I think by the trade deadline, if they're in a playoff position, they're going to need some depth on defense that they don't have at this point right now. That being said, I think they can make the playoffs, but they might be a bubble team coming down to the finish. Moving on to the Minnesota Wild. Nick Backstrom is a proven #1 goalie. The question is, who backs him up? Josh Harding would be the obvious choice, considering he stepped in very quickly in the first game of the playoffs last season. But he's got health issues with multiple sclerosis, and they also have a guy by the name of Darcy Krupfire, I think is how you pronounce that. I hope I pronounced that right. The biggest departure from this team in the offseason was Devin Setaguchi. However, the Wild did pick up Matt Cook, Keith Ballard, and I believe Tom Gilbert is a new addition as well. So, they've lost a key center, but they're going to need big numbers out of Zach Parise if they're going to be successful. The strength that I see on the Wild is that they have a solid top 6 forwards, and they have plenty of prospects for the future, and they're probably going to be one of those teams that's going to be a team of the future. They've got prospects like Michael Granlund, Jonas Brodin, Charlie Coyle, Jared Spurgeon. So, the future is bright in Minnesota, but I don't think it'll be this year. They definitely have weaknesses on defense. An inexperienced backup goalie, if Josh Harding can't play for the whole season backing Nick Backstrom up, I don't think they will make the playoffs. And finally, the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado has a solid #1 and #2 goalie in Simeon Varlamov and J.S. Giguère. But I question whether these guys will really be able to carry the team into the playoffs and turn that into a long playoff run. Now, they made a trade with Calgary in the offseason, and they, in return for David Jones and a couple other players, they received Alex Tanguay and Corey Sarge. And Alex Tanguay, I think, is a little bit overrated, and I don't think he's going to provide as much offense as people think. And the good thing about Corey Sarge is he's been to a Stanley Cup final before, and he's going to add some veteran leadership on the blue line. They also added Jamie McGann in the offseason. That'll just add some grit and toughness to their team. The strengths for the Avalanche are obviously Matt Duchene and Gabriel Landeskog. They're going to be a tough team. They've got a lot of toughness in their bottom six forwards and on defense. Obviously, the future is bright with drafting the first overall pick, Nate McKinnon. I don't think he'll make the team this year, but it's definitely something to look forward to for the future. Their weaknesses that I see are veteran defensemen, and they're not going to get much scoring from their bottom six forwards. However, they could surprise people and make the playoffs. So we'll have to see. And that wraps up a look at the Central Division of the NHL. Stay tuned for part 5 of the preseason preview. It'll look at the NHL's Pacific Division, and I think we've saved the best for last. It's going to be the Pacific Division is going to be very tight. Slap the like button and please subscribe if you like this video. Also, leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Also, I left out the Winnipeg Jets because they're in the first video with the 7 Canadian teams. So that does it, and I will see you